business operation during the peak season. Okay, so cyclical cash needs. Now, what about investment for a return or accretion of wealth? Like for example, no investment in debt or equity securities, no for regular income. Syempre, kung meron kang investment in stock or investment in equity securities, then you are what? You are anticipating. Why do you do that? Because you want to have a regular dividend income. Whereas if you will be investing in debt, like for example, investment in bonds, then you would have a regular source of interest income. Regular in the sense na talagang talagang meron kang pagkukunan or regular, ibig sabihin it's really periodic, no? Okay, na meron kang regular interest income, meron kang regular dividend income, and in so to speak, right? Okay, and in the case naman of investment property, o di ba? Why do you invest in investment property? Land or building, right? Okay, because you want a regular what? Regular source of rentals. Kasi 'di ba yung investment property, it is for regular rental, right? Okay, so investment for a return or accretion of wealth. Now, capital appreciation is another, no, it's another purpose of investment. Bumili ka ng lupa, no? Wala ka namang paggagamitan ng lupa. Nandyan lang siya for capital appreciation. Or for, let's say, bumili ka ng lupa for an indefinite purpose. Because you know that land and real estates are good investment. Because they appreciate in value. Diba? So direct investment, like another example, not only investment in land and real estate. Yun nga sinasabi nating investment property. But it may also be, one good example is direct investment in precious metals and commodities. No? Kagaya ng kunwari, may mga pieces of jewelry ka. Bakit ka nag-i-invest in pieces of jewelry? Not because you want to, you want to decorate your body with so many pieces of jewelry. Hindi eh. Kasi natural, no? Because nag-a-appreciate ang value ng gold, nag-a-appreciate ang value ng silver and other, and other precious metals, yung mga precious stones, no? Kasi nga nag-a-appreciate sa value. So anong purpose mo? Capital appreciation. Or if you are going to sell, no, you will generate a capital gain out of it, right? Okay. Now, investment for influence, no? Anong ibig sabihin ng investment for influence? Eto, pasok na tayo dito sa PAS number 28. So investment for influence means investment in associate or investment in joint venture. Kaya nga yung PAS number 28 natin, no, it's either investment in associate that we are accounting for, okay? Or it may be investment in joint venture. So isang PAS lang yan, yung PAS 28. So, ano ibig sabihin ng investment for influence? Significant influence. No, as in the case of investment in associate, no? So it ensures a supply of raw materials. It also influences board of directors. Meron kang say sa board, no? You can significantly influence operating as well as financial decisions of the board of directors. And in fact, you may have several seats in the board of directors. Bakit? Kasi may significant influence ka over the investee. Or it may be because of diversity or to diversify product offerings, no? Kaya nga pag dito sa investment for yung investment in associate, no? An associate is of course, no, point of view of the investor, if the investee No, you can significantly influence the financial as well as the operating decisions of the investee, then we call that investee an associate. Para bang sinabi mo yung investor and investee no are of the same boat or of the same or of a single economic unit. Okay? Kaya ibig sabihin, and of course, it justifies the use of equity method of accounting, which we will discuss later. Okay? Now, or you may invest in order to purchase ownership control no, over the investee, as in the case of investment in subsidiary. So the parent is the investor, the subsidiary is the investee. Ang tawag natin sa investee, the one that is being controlled by the parent corporation, ang tawag natin ay subsidiary. Or sometimes we call them affiliates. Okay. So what's the purpose? You purchase for ownership control. Kaya sabi mo, paano magkakaroon ng control? Kailangan majority ng voting shares. Ano ba yung voting shares? Yung ordinary shares, no? Majority is owned by the parent. Okay? So majority ownership, if you are going to use the quantitative threshold, now when you say majority, it means to say that the ownership is at least 50 plus 1. No? Which enables control of operating, investing, and financing decisions. No? Kaya ibig sabihin may parent-subsidiary relationship. So that if there is a parent-subsidiary relationship, then sabi nga natin, it is a what? It is a condition for you to prepare consolidated financial statements. Diba? Or Group FS. Okay, now, the financial performance of all subsidiaries is considered with the financial statements of the parent. Kaya nga gumagawa si parent company, dalawang set ng financial statements ang pine-prepare niya. One is the separate financial statement, yung unconsolidated FS nila on its own operation. And the other set of financial statement which the parent prepares no, is the consolidated financial statement. Kaya si parent company, dalawa yung ipepresent niyang financial statements. One is the separate FS of the parent no, regarding its own operation. And the other one is consolidated financial statement, which is a group FS, meaning to say that you consider the parent as well as all its subsidiaries as a single economic unit. Tama? No? Taking into consideration no, the group's what? The group's economic relationship. Yan yung sinasabi nating purchase for ownership control. At pag sinabi nating ownership control, we only refer to only one class of stock, and that is yung sinasabi nating ordinary share or no, common stock. No, we can call it common stock, we can call it ordinary share. What about preference share? Well, preference share is not what? It is not a voting share. Therefore, hindi kasali yan sa equity method of accounting. Only investment in ordinary shares, no, kapag merong significant influence, then that means to say it is considered or the investee, no, point of view of the investee is an associate. Kaya nga pag naging investment in associate, anong ginagawa natin? Equity method of accounting ang ginagawa natin or ginagamit natin. Okay? Now, another purpose of investment is to meet business requirements. Like for example, or contractual, no, contractual terms or condition. Like for example, if the corporation issues bonds, maaaring dun sa bond indenture merong condition yon that the company or the the issuing corporation has what? Has to maintain or to establish a bond sinking fund. And that bond sinking fund is said to be an investment. It's not cash because it is set aside for a long-term purpose, and that is to settle maturing bonds in the future. Right? Okay, so ano yon? Yung bond sinking fund, yung preference share redemption fund, plant expansion fund, fund sila pero hindi siya cash, hindi sila cash. Bakit? Ang intention ay non-current. Kaya anong treatment mo dyan? Well, these are investments. They are fund investment. Such that if you are going to present a statement of financial position, these fund investments are non-current assets. Okay, another investment is for protection. Di ba, isn't it na bumibili ka ng ng insurance policy? Okay, and that at the end of the third year, then the insurance policy will have a cash surrender value. So the cash surrender value of life insurance policy is a kind or is an example of an investment for protection. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng cash surrender value of life insurance policy? So let's say 3 years ka na nagbabayad ng premium for a life insurance policy. So at the end of the third year, meron ng cash surrender value yung insurance so that in the event that you will withdraw the life insurance policy or ayaw mo na ituloy yung life insurance policy, then of course the insurance company ought to return or to refund a certain amount of premium. Okay? And that is equal to cash surrender value of the life insurance policy. Natural, kung at the end of the first year, kinancel mo yung policy, wala pang cash surrender value yun, wala kang mari-refund sa binayad mong premium. Pero kunwari, let's say, at the end of, kung nakalagay sa term and condition na magkakaroon na ng cash surrender value at the end of the year, at the end of, let's say, the third year of the policy, tapos in the event that you cancel the policy, meron kang makukuha kahit papano na refund of your life insurance policy premium. Kasi nagbabayad ka ng premium 3 years ka na nagbabayad ng premium, kinancel mo yung life insurance policy, hindi mo na tinuloy. Tanong, may makukuha ka bang refund ng premium na ipinayad mo over 3 years from the insurance policy or insurance company? The answer is yes, if there is already a cash surrender value of life insurance policy such that in the statement of financial position, a cash surrender value of life insurance policy is what? A non-current asset. It's a non-current asset. Okay? Now, examples of investment. Ayan. So, these are not all inclusive. These are examples, common examples of investment. Dapat pala tanggalan natin ng S because there is no such word as investments. So, examples of investment. Ayan. Financial assets at fair value through profit or loss, which is the subject also of PFRS number 9. Kasi financial instrument ito. Now, what is another term for financial asset at fair value through profit or loss? Yung marketable securities nyo or yung sinasabi nating trading securities. Okay? Trading securities or using the IFRS term, financial asset at fair value through P&L or through profit or loss. Okay? Now, another is financial asset at fair value through other comprehensive income. Again, this is covered by PFRS number 9. Ngayon, sabi natin, ano ba ibig sabihin, another term or another terminology in lieu of financial asset at fair value through other comprehensive income is, naaalala niyo pa ba yung ating available for sale securities? Pareho lang yun. So, available kasi yung trading securities or marketable securities as well as etong available for sale securities, these are US GAAP terms. US GAAP. Ngayon, ang IFRS, may another, ano siya, yung term for this. Equivalent naman doon sa US GAAP term. Okay, gusto nilang iba or unique. Kaya ang haba-haba ng ano inilalagay natin. Financial asset at fair value through other comprehensive income. That is the name of the account. Okay? Which is, of course, equivalent to the term uh, available for sale securities. Okay. What about financial assets at amortized cost? No? Okay. Financial assets at amortized cost, no, under US GAAP, this is the held to maturity securities. Held to maturity securities. And sometimes, no, mas convenient sa atin na gamitin yung term na investment in bonds instead of saying financial asset at amortized cost. Pero pareho lang ang ibig sabihin nun. Again, no, this is also covered in PFRS number 9. Okay. Now, ano pa? Investment in associate, which is covered by PAS 28 as I mentioned earlier. Okay? Now, pag sinabi nating investment and associate, this is what? Investment in ordinary shares. No? And that, no, the ownership, our ownership interest or the investor's ownership interest, no, is at least 20% to give the investor a significant influence over the investee, which the investor calls as associate. Gets nyo? Pagdating natin ng PAS 28, bubusisiin natin yung detalye ng PAS 28. Okay. Now, what about investment in joint venture? This is also a subject of PAS number 28. Sabi mo, bakit sinama yan sa investment in associate na PAS? Kasi parehong ginagamitan ng equity method of accounting. Now, pag sinabi nating investment in associate, di ba, sabi natin yung ownership interest is at least 20% of the outstanding shares or outstanding ordinary shares of the investee. Kaya nga tinawag natin yung issuing corporation niya, tinawag nating associate. What about in investment in joint ventures? Pag sinabi nating investment in joint venture, there is joint control. Kung sa investment in associate, significant influence lang. Pagdating dito sa investment in joint venture, joint control. Pare-pareho yung percentage interest nila na mga, ang tawag doon, joint venturers. Okay? So the joint venturers in a joint venture, no, exercise, what? Exercise joint control. Kung tatlo sila, tig 33 and 1/3 sila. Kung apat sila, 25% each. Kung dalawa lang silang joint venturer, then that means to say 50% ownership. Kung si A at saka si B ay joint venturers, then it is understood that the investment in joint venture of A, no, over, no, the joint venture, no, is a joint control, 50%. And the other one, si B naman, as a joint venturer, also has a 50% control. Pareho. Eh, kunwari, let's say, ano sila, tawag dito, 5 sila, edi tigbe 20% kasi 5 yung joint venture. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng joint control. O, di ba? If you still remember your accounting for special transactions when you learn wherein you learn about accounting for joint venture. Diba? Accounting for joint arrangement. Pag sinabi natin joint arrangement, it is either a joint operation or a joint venture. Diba? Kaya ibig sabihin, if there is what? No? If it is a joint venture, of course, there are joint venturers. And joint venture would mean joint control. Diba? Okay, so investment in subsidiary. Anong gagamitin na nating PFRS dito? PFRS number 10. Why? Because investment in subsidiary is all about control. No, control over the investee. Kaya hindi na associate ang tawag niya. doon sa affiliate na yon or yung investee, no? Kundi ang tawag na niya ay subsidiary niya. So the investor being the parent and the subsidiary being the, the investee being the subsidiary. Kaya point of view of the parent company recognizes investment in subsidiary. Ibig sabihin yan, no, there is already control. At pag sinabi natin control, quantitative threshold, although as we all know, according to PFRS number 10, no, it's not enough, or it's not, it is not only quantitative threshold that will tell us if there is control, but maaaring outside of that quantitative threshold, meron pang iba't ibang indications that there is control over, no, the investee, which we will discuss in detail under PFRS number 10 later. Okay? So investment property, we're already done with this. It's PAS number 40. And then of course there are other investments we call investment in fund. Okay? So mga bond sinking fund, preference share redemption fund, no? And all others. Okay? So let's have PFRS number 9. PFRS number 9 is financial instrument. Okay. Now, PFRS number 9 establishes principles for the financial reporting of financial assets of one entity and financial liability of another entity, or hindi lang financial liability, or it may be an equity instrument of another entity. No? So please note that IFRS number 9 or PFRS number 9 does not define financial instruments. The definition of financial instrument can be found in PAS 32. Okay? Financial instruments, no, or presentation, no? Okay. Kasi yung financial instrument na nasa PFRS number 9 is only recognition and measurement. Pero yung presentation ng financial instrument is the subject, or is covered, no, in PFRS or PAS number 32. Okay. So PFRS number 9 does not deal with your own, no, with your own issued equity instrument, no, like the reporting entity's own shares, issued warrants, written options for equity. So ibig sabihin, it is only presenting, itong part na ito ng lecture note is only saying na merong mga limitations yung PFR number 9. Ibig sabihin, ito yung mga items na you will not find in PFRS number 9. Okay, so this, when do you recognize a financial instrument? Okay? A financial asset or a financial liability should be recognized in the statement of financial position. Do you agree? Yes, of course. So when the entity becomes a party to the contractual provisions of the instrument. So ibig sabihin, there are two parties involved here. No? The one entity recognizes financial asset, the other entity recognizes financial liability or equity. Okay? So unlike in other IFRS standards that put emphasis on the future economic benefits, no, PFRS number 9 is more about the contract. Ano nakalagay sa kontrata? Oh, when to de-recognize a financial, di ba sabi natin, no? Aside from recognizing a financial instrument, there will come a time that you will de-recognize a financial instrument. Okay. So in other words, when do you remove a financial instrument from the financial statements? So IFRS 9 treats the derecognition of financial assets differently from the derecognition of financial liabilities. So, syempre, kung ikaw ang entity na financial asset, ikaw yung investor. No? Kapag na-recognize mo financial liability in your statement of financial position, you are indebted. no? Ikaw ay indebted. Ikaw yung issuing corporation, 'di ba? Okay, and you are indebted. Kaya nga two parties involved eh. Okay, so next, tingnan natin dito. Okay? So, the contractual rights to the cash flow from the financial asset expire, which is an easy and clear option. So, ibig sabihin, ano raw yung reasons? So, what are, no? After determining what to be derecognized, then the company needs to derecognize the asset when the contractual rights to the cash flow from the financial asset expire, which is an easy and clear option, or an entity transfers the financial asset and the transfer qualifies for the derecognition, which is more complicated. Kasi, di ba, investment in financial instrument, pwedeng i-transfer mo eh, or pwedeng ibenta mo. O, di ba? Kaya di ba you can buy and sell securities? Of course, you can trade securities, right? So when you sell, recognize mo, remove mo na from the books. Okay? So there are many reasons or several reasons why you need to derecognize it from the books or remove it from the books. Okay? Which you have already discussed no in intermediate accounting, no? Accounting for financial assets and accounting for financial liabilities. Like for example, yung investment in bonds. Pinag-aralan nyo yung accounting for investment in bonds. No point of view of the investor or the bondholder. On the other hand, no, you also learn about accounting for financial liabilities so that the counterpart of investment in bond point of view of the issuing corporation is a bonds payable. So yung bonds payable is a financial liability. Kaya yung kung bondholder ka, financial asset mo yung investment in bonds. Kapag ikaw naman yung issuing corporation, so you will be recognizing financial liability, particularly bonds payable. O ganun lang kadali yon. Laging may counterpart. Titingnan mo kung ano yung role ng company and what is the role of the company in the contract. Okay? So, ayan, sa the recognition yan, ha? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, there are many examples of financial instruments. No? There are many examples of financial instrument. Okay. Now, how do you classify financial assets? Doon muna tayo sa financial assets. Actually, there are two characteristics. Okay? For financial assets. One is the business model test and another is the contractual cash flow characteristics test. Itong mga pinagsasasabi ko to, if you are curious, no, you can download the full pronouncement of PFRS number 9 from the website, no? Or sabihin natin, 'di ba, PFRS number 9 is also IFRS number 9. Hanapin mo yung IASB what do you call this, IASB website, and you can download the full content of IFRS number 9. Okay. Doon muna tayo sa financial asset. There are two tests for a financial asset para malaman natin kung talagang financial asset siya. The business model test, anong klaseng financial asset siya? The business model test and the contractual cash flow characteristic test. Now, what is business model test? The business model test will tell us or you will learn what is the objective of holding financial asset. So meaning to say, this refers to management intention. Bakit yung entity nag-invest? Anong purpose ng investment? So this is the business model test. What is the objective of holding financial asset? Okay. So, collecting the contractual cash flow or selling Anong ibig sabihin na to? Okay, so kunwari, financial asset at fair value through profit or loss. What is the intention of management? To trade it and not to hold it. Di ba? For contractual cash flow, but to sell it as the need arises. Anong ibig sabihin? Eh di, ang tawag doon, financial asset at fair value through profit or loss, or what you call as trading security. Kasi the management intention is to buy and sell such security without holding it till maturity. 'Di ba? Kung ito ay isang debt instrument. Kasi pag equity instrument, walang maturity date. 'Di ba? Pag bumili ka ng stock, yung stock certificate ba may maturity date? Wala. Eh yung kunwari bumili ka ng bonds, meron bang maturity date ang bond? Yes, kasi debt instrument yun. No? Kaya ang purpose of business model test, you will know the classification of the financial asset by determining the business or by applying the business model test. Anong ibig sabihin? What is the objective of holding the financial asset? Eh kung ang financial asset is to be held only for trading, you sell it as the need arises. Ibig sabihin yan, that is financial asset at fair value through P&L. Kasi selling ang iyong intention. And what about if your intention is to hold, or rather, is to hold the investment indefinitely? Indefinitely. So, ibig sabihin, nagdidili-dali pa yung kasi merong regular cash flow eh. 'Di ba? Kung meron kang investment in bonds, no? You will have a regular interest income. If you have investment in stock, you will have a regular what? A regular source of cash flow, which is interest income. No? Kung stocks naman yan, you have dividend income. 'Di ba? Kaya kung ang intention mo is to hold it indefinitely kasi nag-e-enjoy ka dun sa contractual cash flow nun, no? Regular cash flow nun from holding such investment, then that means to say your purpose, no, is that of financial asset at fair value through other comprehensive income. Yun ang classification mo. Okay? Or if your intention is to hold it, let's say investment or debt instrument yan, investment in debt instrument, like bonds, and that your intention is to hold it till maturity. Kung maturity niya ay 10 years, then the intention of management is to hold it for 10 years till maturity. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Eh di ibig sabihin yan, that is investment or financial asset at amortized cost. Oh, got it? Kaya depende kung ano ang business model mo. Collecting the contractual cash flow or selling. Okay? Second, no, the second test is that contractual cash flows characteristic test. Are the cash flows from the financial asset on the specified date solely payments of principal and interest on the principal outstanding, or is there something else? Oh, kagaya in the event na, kunwari, aside from regular interest, ang intention mo is to control the investee. So, ibig sabihin, there is something else more than collection of payment or collection of dividend. Oh, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, that means to say, may control, then that means it is something else. Therefore, investment in ano yan? Investment in subsidiary yan. Or investment in associate yan kung 20% kung may significant influence. Okay. Kunwari, sabihin natin, sinabi ko na, yung example natin na let's say, amortized financial asset at amortized cost kasi ang intention is to hold it till maturity, no? So at a specified date, solely payments of principal and interest, no? Okay, so yon ano? So based on these two tests, the financial assets can be classified in the following categories, no? Just like what I mentioned earlier, it may be at amortized cost. A financial asset falls into this category if both of the following conditions are met. So business model test is met. You hold the financial asset only to collect contractual cash flow, not to sell them, and that the contractual cash flow characteristic test is met. The cash flow from the asset are only the payment of principal and interest. Kasi debt instrument yan. No? Okay. So, basta debt security or debt instrument. Tanong, may maturity date? Yes, there is maturity date. O another example of this at amortized cost is receivable. Like for example, loan receivable. O, di ba sabi natin, loan receivable is initially recognized at fair value plus transaction cost, no, and that subsequently, no, loans receivable is recognized at what, at amortized cost, kasi there is an expected collection of principal and interest. Oh, so loans, receivables, no, any kind of receivables, no, at amortized cost yan, except of course kung hindi na kailangang i-amortize kasi within the next 12 months naman, kaya at face amount. Okay. So, at fair value through other comprehensive income or fair value OCI, there are two subcategories. No? If a financial asset meets contractual cash flow characteristic test, like debt asset only and the business model is to collect contractual cash flow. Kasi pag sinabi nating fair value through other comprehensive income, pwedeng debt instrument or equity instrument. Parehong pwede. No? Okay, so you can voluntarily choose to meet some equity instrument at fair value OCI. So this is an irrevocable election at initial recognition. Or it may be at fair value through P&L. Ito yung sinasabi natin, ang intention is just selling or trading. Okay? So, ganun, ano? Now, so tapos ko nang i-discuss ito. Ayan. Okay? So, ito yung classification test lang. How to classify financial, tapos tayo sa financial asset classification, ano? What about classifying financial liabilities? Okay. So, kung ang ating party or our entity is the one indebted, no? Financial liability or the issuer, let's say issuer of the bond, di ibig sabihin, financial liability is what we're talking about. So, IFRS number 9 classifies financial liabilities as follows. Okay, 1. Financial liabilities at fair value through P&L. So, these financial liabilities are subsequently measured at fair value and all derivatives belong. Ngayon, ano ba ibig sabihin ng derivatives? No? And all derivatives belong. Di ba, naaalala nyo, no? Meron mga tinatawag tayo na financial liability like convertible bonds. Ano ibig sabihin ng convertible bond? It's a bond. However, there is a conversion privilege. So you can convert it, let's say, into equity securities or equity instrument like ordinary share. Kaya ibig sabihin, may conversion privilege. Anong klase yung conversion privilege na yan? That is actually an embedded derivative. Diba? Ibig sabihin, the host contract is the bond. Pero yung kanyang embedded derivative is what? It is the conversion privilege because sooner or later, at the option of the bondholder can opt to convert such into ordinary shares. O kaya naman yung mga bonds with stock warrants. So that yung stock warrants na yan, once exercised, may become ordinary shares or equity instrument. O di may embedded derivative. Okay? So ano ibig sabihin ng embedded derivative again? Ito yung derivative that is attached to the host contract. O di ang tanong ay ganito, paano yon? There are two separate instruments. Okay? The host contract and the derivative. Ngayon ang tanong, kailangan bang ang tawag dito, i-detach yung embedded derivative from the host contract? Yes. Through the process of what? Naaalala nyo pa yon, yung bifurcation or yung detaching. Now, what do you mean by bifurcation? It's the process of detaching the embedded derivative from the host contract. No? Okay, kaya sinabi dito, financial liabilities at fair value through P&L, these financial liabilities are subsequently measured at fair value, and here all derivatives belong. So other financial liabilities measured at amortized cost using the effective interest method. Like for example, bonds payable. 'Di ba? Pag bonds payable, you may what? The bonds, you may issue the bonds, okay, either at a discount or at a premium. Kaya anong ginagamit natin to amortize the discount or the premium? You use the effective interest method. Diba? For you to know the amortized cost, kailangan you have to use the effective interest method. And that is what is recommended by PFRS number 9. The use of the effective method, interest method of amortizing either the bond discount or the bond premium. Okay? Di ba sa effective interest method, anong ginagawa natin? Kino-compare natin yung effective interest versus the nominal interest. Therefore, the difference is either a bond discount or a bond what? A bond discount amortization or a bond premium amortization. O, di ba? Naalala niyo 'yon? Oh, so, yun ang recommended ng PFRS, the use of effective interest method in determining the amortization of either the bond discount or the bond premium. Di ba? Pag sinabi natin, pag malaki ang effective interest kesa doon sa nominal interest, ano yon? Bond discount or bond premium amortization? O ano, naaalala nyo? But without looking, without looking on your notes. Okay? So, ang sabi natin, kapag ang effective interest mas malaki kaysa doon sa nominal interest, ano ibig sabihin? Bond discount, bond premium, amortization. The answer is bond discount amortization. Kasi mas malaki yung effective interest kaysa doon sa nominal interest. Pag binaliktad mo yon, effective interest mas maliit kaysa doon sa nominal interest, ang tawag doon ay bond premium amortization. O, ganun lang naman yun. No? Okay. IFRS number 9 mentions separately some other types of financial liabilities measured in a different way, such as financial guarantee contracts and commitments to provide a loan at a below market interest rate. Pwede ba yon? Pwede. Depende nga sa terms ng contract. Okay, how do you measure financial instrument? Okay, di ba lagi tayong sinasabi natin, yung measurement may be initial or subsequent. Pag sinabing initial measurement, then that means to say at the time of acquisition or point of view of the issuing corporation at the time of issuance. Okay? Now, financial assets or financial liabilities shall be initially measured at what? Fair value. All financial instruments at fair value through P&L. Or it may be, we say, fair value plus transaction cost. All other financial instruments at amortized cost or fair value through other comprehensive income. Tingnan mo, kapag fair value through profit or loss, ang sagot mo, how do you measure financial asset? No, initially, kapag fair value through financial asset at fair value through P&L, natural, ang initial measurement mo is fair value. Sabi mo, paano yung mga transaction cost? Ang sabi natin, ang sagot natin ay yung transaction cost is to be treated as an expense rather than to be capitalized as cost of what? Of the financial asset at fair value through P&L. Bakit? Kasi yung transaction cost nga expense kung ito ay fair value through P&L. Now, what about if it is fair value through other comprehensive income? Ang initial measurement natin may plus transaction cost kasi yung transaction cost is also to be capitalized as together with the fair value as the cost of financial asset initially. 'Di ba? Okay. Paano yung financial asset at amortized cost? Ganon din, no? Laging fair value plus transaction cost. So, ang naiiba lang yung fair value at P&L. Kasi yung transaction cost is an expense. Kapag fair value at OCI, fair value through at amortized cost, no, parehong fair value plus transaction cost. So, ang treatment ng transaction cost is, it is capitalizable. Okay na? Okay. Next. Subsequent measurement. Sabi natin, at the end of the year, or at the end of each year, subsequent measurement ang ibig sabihin natin yan. Ha? Okay, subsequent measurement depends on the category of a financial instrument. And according to the title, and it is according to the title of a category. So pag financial asset, financial asset shall be subsequently measured either at fair value or at amortized cost. Yung dalawang fair value, yung fair value through P&L, fair value through other comprehensive income. Syempre, ang basis mo is fair value. So any changes in fair value will be accounted for. There may be an increase or a decrease in fair value, and you have to account for any unrealized gain or unrealized loss due to changes in fair value. Di ba ganon? What about financial asset at amortized cost? Di natural at amortized cost. Kaya nga sinabing financial asset at amortized cost. Hahanapin mo lagi at the end of each reporting period, you will have to account for the amortized cost of the financial asset. Okay? Through what? Through using the effective interest method. Kaya nga sinabi siyang at amortized cost. Di ba, from time to time, kukunin mo yung updated carrying amount of the financial asset. Di ba? Okay. Regarding financial liabilities, they are also measured at amortized cost unless the fair value option is applied. Okay? So, yun ang subsequent measurement. Ayun. How to recognize gains and losses from subsequent measurement. O di mag-compare ka ng fair value. Iko-compare natin yung fair value. Kaya ngayon fair value accounting Kasi, that is one limitation noon. Before, na hindi pa acceptable yung mga fair value accounting na yan. Wala pa yung mga yan, Talagang, talagang purely at cost lang talaga, that is one limitation. Yan ang pintas ng mga users of financial statements. Kasi kung laging at cost yan, without any fair value accounting, hindi practical or hindi realistic yung mga values natin na pine-present sa financial statement. Yan nga ang pintas nung unang panahon when we were still studying. Kasi kami lagi at cost, at walang kamatayang at cost. Walang fair value accounting yung araw. Ngayon lang nauso yung mga fair value accounting na yan. Okay? Kasi nga, hindi unrealistic kung lagi kang stick at cost. Paano nga kung let's say, you need to know the true and the current value of financial statement for purposes of applying for a bank loan. Makikita doon at cost, lagi ng at cost. Nakakaano naman yon. So, ibig sabihin, unrealistic na yon. Kaya, we are allowed to make changes, We are allowed to adopt fair value as our measurement, Okay, para maging realistic yung mga values natin doon sa statement of financial position. Okay? And even in the income statement, i-account natin. Kaya nga sinabing, pag fair value, financial asset at fair value through P&L, any changes in fair value, whether increase or decrease, whether gain or loss, di ba? Unrealized gain, unrealized loss from change or from increase or decrease in fair value. Okay? Accounted for as profit or loss in the income statement. What about if it is fair value or changes in fair value for financial asset at fair value through OCI or other comprehensive income? Any unrealized gain or loss is accounted for as what? OCI or other comprehensive income. Okay, so ibig sabihin, 'di ba? Naalala niyo yung statement of comprehensive income mo. May upper section, may lower section. Yung upper section, yun yung P&L. Yung lower section, yun yung OCI. Kaya yung changes in fair value of financial asset through profit or loss, lahat ng changes nandun sa P&L, sa upper section. Pero kapag changes in fair value of financial asset at fair value through OCI, yung lahat ng changes, whether increase or decrease, will go directly to OCI, yung sa lower section of your income statement. And that, diretso siya doon sa OCI in the shareholders' equity. Yung pinaka-neto niya, doon sa shareholders' equity. Kaya nga makikita mo, yung dalawang kaya nga sinabi sa financial asset at fair value through P&L. Kasi changes in fair value, pasok sa P&L, income statement. Pero kapag kunwari, fair financial asset at fair value through OCI item yung unrealized gain or loss. Diretso siya, pupunta siya, diretso sa shareholders' equity. Right? O ganun lang kadali yon. What about yung amortized cost? Yung financial asset, financial liability at amortized cost. O saan mapupunta yon? No? So sa P&L. No, P&L using the effective interest rate. O, kaya pag tinanong kayo, magkano ang effective interest? Ay computein mo yung effective interest using the effective interest method. No? Okay, so ibig sabihin, no? Yung interest income or interest expense, no, point of view naman kapag financial asset, interest expense, di ba? Pag financial asset naman, income. Saan papunta 'yon? Sa P&L. Syempre, represent mo sa income statement, no? It's either interest income or interest expense. Okay, kung financial asset at amortized cost, may interest income ka. Pag financial asset or liability at amortized cost, then meron kang interest expense. Di ba? Ganun lang yun. Okay, so let me give you a break. Kawawa naman kayo, ka-exam nyo lang. I'm sure na you are all tired, no? So break muna ng 15 minutes. Sige, hinga muna. Okay. So hinga muna for 15 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to check the attendance after 15 minutes, ha? So make sure that you are in the attendance list. Do not go away. No, we are not done yet. Okay? Sige, mag-break time muna kayo. Kawawa naman kayo eh. Konti-konti nyo nga. Yung iba, siguro lupay-pay na sa exam. Anyway, di bale, sige. Ng April ngayon, 24. Okay, we're back. Ba, ayaw na. Sandali. Ayan. Ayan. Okay. So, ayan, no? So, ito yung, ngayon, puntahan natin itong stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, di ba? No? Kahit sa receivables, no? Meron tayong tinatawag na, no? Impairment, di ba? Okay, so sa financial instrument, no, like financial asset at fair value through P&L, OCI at amortized cost, subject din sila sa impairment. Okay? Now, in measuring expected credit losses, okay? Kasi tayo, as accountants, we are conservative, no? Such that yung na-anticipate pa lang natin, no, there be what? Should there be kumbaga something like unexpected credit loss, tinetake up na natin. Nire-recognize na natin. 'Di ba? Kahit sa trade accounts receivable, we always what? We always use the allowance method in order to set up, no, doubtful accounts. 'Di ba? Okay, such that our adjusting entry at the end of the year, no, is that of a debit to uncollectible accounts expense or doubtful accounts expense or simply bad debts expense, and we credit an allowance for doubtful accounts or allowance for bad debts or allowance for uncollectible accounts. 'Di ba? Ngayon, sa mga financial instrument, the same is true. Okay? That's the reason why meron tayong tinatawag na recognition of impairment loss. Should there be, we always measure expected credit losses. So that when measuring expected credit losses, entities will be required to use all relevant information that is available to them, even without undue cost or effort. Ngayon, sabi ng PFRS number 9, there are two approaches, no, in what? In measuring a loss allowance. Okay? Or in measuring credit losses. Okay? Ngayon sabi natin, ano bang risk ang involved kapag whenever there is financial instrument? There is always a risk we call credit risk. So that should, let's say, an entity defaults. When you say default, hindi makabayad. Hindi makabayad ng principal, hindi makabayad ng interest. Okay. So we anticipate credit loss. Okay. Ngayon, sabi natin, may two approaches. No? Number one is the use of the general model for measuring a loss allowance. So this model recognizes loss allowance depending on the stage in which the financial asset is. So nasa ang stage yung financial asset. So there are three stages. Stage 1, you perform, the stage 1 for performing assets, no? Loss allowance is recognized in the amount of 12 months expected credit loss. Tandaan mo, yung expected credit, yung ating percentage or yung loss allowance natin is based on the 12-month expected credit loss, wherein wala pang significant risk of default. No? Okay, so meron na kagad tayo, ina-anticipate na kagad natin because we are conservative eh. No? So we anticipate expected credit loss. Therefore, under stage 1, you'd recognize loss allowance, no, in the amount of 12-month expected credit loss. So mag-a-assume ang company ng 12-month expected credit loss. Okay. Ngayon, ano magiging entry natin? So we will set up an impairment loss and we credit a loss allowance based on the 12-month expected credit loss. Kailan tayo nasa stage 1? Kapag wala pang significant credit risk that is involved. Okay? Meron na kagad. Now, what about stage 2? Now, kapag yung asset, no? No, yung expected credit risk, no? Or there is an increase in the credit risk such that sabihin natin instead of only 1%, no, of the expected credit loss, yung under the stage 2 nagkaroon ng slight increase or even sabi natin, no, nagkaroon ng significant increase, no, in the credit risk. Kunwari, from 1% naging 2%, which of course the entity may find it significant. Anong gagawin natin? I-increase natin yung ating expected, yung ating impairment loss. So the loss allowance is recognized in the amount of lifetime expected credit loss. No? Hindi na 12-month expected credit loss ang basis natin, kundi based na doon sa amount of lifetime expected credit loss. Okay? Nabago yung basis natin. Hindi na yung 12-month expected credit loss as our basis of the setting up of the loss allowance, but it will be based now on the amount of lifetime expected credit loss. Pagdating ng stage 3, ito yung sinasabi natin, credit impaired na yung financial asset. Hindi lang significant increase in credit risk as in stage 2. Ang nangyari, yung stage 3, talagang na-impair na yung financial asset. Hindi na expected, talagang na-impair na. So loss allowance is recognized in the amount of lifetime expected credit loss, but the interest revenue is also is still recognized based on amortized cost. Okay, bibigyan ko kayo ng example, ha? Okay, ito yung simplified, ito yung ating ganito. Okay. Wait lang, ha. Ito siya. Sa receivables kasi or loan receivable, naku, ano rin to, subject din sa impairment loss. Okay. Kasi pareho lang naman eh. Parehong financial financial instrument 'yan. Kaya yung expected credit loss model, no, pareho lang. Now, sa impairment of receivables, no, when you say credit loss, it arises when a debtor fails to pay some or all of the contractual payments, including instances of late payment. Credit loss yun. Okay. Now, ano ba yung expected credit loss model? Okay, so sabi natin, under the general approach, so for the recognition of impairment losses on financial assets that are measured at amortized cost and financial asset with contractual cash flow measured at fair value through other comprehensive income, applicable itong general approach na ito. So sabi natin sa stage 1, when there has not been a significant increase in credit risk since initial recognition. Stage 2 and stage 3, when there has been significant increase in credit since initial recognition. So, ganito ang gawin natin, ano? Let us have an illustrative problem, no? So, Charlotte Company has a loan receivable amounting to 2 million on January 1st of 2023, which is expected to be collected in full on December 31 of 2032. So magkano yung loan receivable? Magkano siya? 2 million. The effective interest rate is 6% per annum, which is payable at the end or at end of each year. Assume the debtor eventually defaults on December 31, assumption lang 2027, which results to an actual loss of 500,000. if the probability of default within the next 12 months is 2%. Remember, nakita mo yan ha, yung probability raw ng default, ina-anticipate lang naman or expected, no, within the next 12 months is 2%. So what is the entry to recognize stage 1 credit loss? So, on January 1st, 2023, syempre mag-e-enter yung company or magde-debit yung company ng loan receivable of 2 million and credit cash. Nagpautang eh. So nag-debit ng loan receivable 2 million at nag-credit ng cash 2 million. Syempre may lumabas na ka sa kanya. Kunwari, bangko ito. Nagpautang sa isang kliyente. Natural, yung utang ide-debit mo sa loan receivable, magkaya-creditan ka ng cash ng 2 million. Ngayon, with regards to the stage 1, no, entry to record loss allowance, anong mangyayari? Okay, so sa stage 1, ang magiging entry natin will be debit to impairment loss of 10,000 at magke-credit tayo ng loss allowance for 10,000. O paano natin kinompute yung 10,000? Eh di ba ganito? Kung ang expected loss allowance within the next 12 months ay ano yun? 500,000. Ayan ha. I-multiply natin yan ng 2%. Kaya magseset ka ng 12,000, ng 10,000. So remember, wala pang significant increase in credit risk within the next 12 months. Kaya yan ang naging entry natin. Stage 1 yan. Entry. Pagdating ng stage 2, example, nagkaroon ng significant increase, no, in the credit risk such that ang gagamitin mo na yung full lifetime expected losses. So sabihin natin ang lifetime expected credit losses no are only recognized if the credit risk increases significantly from the entity originates or purchases no financial instrument but that do not have objective evidence of credit loss event. So ibig sabihin kunwari nagkaroon ng increase, ng significant increase in credit risk. Ang nangyari dito, kunwari sabihin natin, from 2%, ito na yun. Ito, continuation ng problem. Okay, so ito. Assuming, no? Okay, at the end of 2023, suppose the probability of default increases slightly to 3%. Dati 2% lang. Ngayon 3% na. Nagkaroon ng increase no in the probability of default. So due to marginal increase in credit risk of the borrower. The 12-month credit losses is re-estimated at 3% times 500,000. Kaya ang mangyayari dyan, you will have to recognize a loss allowance of 15,000. Okay. Such that, kung 15,000 na yung loss allowance at nakapag-take up ka na ng 10,000 during the stage 1, anong gagawin mo? I-increase mo na lang. So, debit impairment loss, 5,000 and credit loss allowance for 5,000. So, very simple, right? Kaya nagkaroon ng, bakit naging 500,000 ito? Kasi nga, no, itinimes natin ng 3%, so you get 15,000 pesos. Okay, so yan ang ating impairment loss and credit loss allowance. Yung difference lang ay set up natin kasi nung stage 1 nakapag-present na tayo or naka-recognize na tayo. Ngayon, example, ituloy natin yung problem, stage 3. If at the end of year 2024, there has been a significant deterioration of the credit quality, but there is no objective evidence of an impairment loss, the lifetime expected credit losses are recognized. If the expected credit losses over the remaining period of the loan is estimated at 200,000, what entry should Charlotte Company make to recognize the lifetime expected credit losses? Ang mangyayari dyan, kung talagang ang lifetime credit losses natin is amounting to 200,000 already, yun as per their estimate, yun na magiging lifetime credit loss. Okay, therefore, yung impairment loss na 200,000 as assumed or as anticipated, i-minus mo yung sinet up mo na 15,000. Kasi 'di ba as of this before or prior to stage 3, meron ka ng sinet up na 15,000 eh. Kaya anong gagawin mo? Kung ito yung lifetime expected credit loss no, of 200,000, i-minus mo ng 15,000, so that means yung impairment loss mo is 185,000 and credit loss allowance of 185,000. Okay? So, yun ang ibig sabihin yan. No? So, that is how you recognize impairment loss for financial instrument. No? Madali lang naman. No? Kaya yun yung stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 model. Okay? So, hindi lang basta credit. O, i-credit mo na kagad. O, debit impairment loss and credit loss allowance. Meron siyang stages. Okay? Padami or palaki ng palaki, palaki ng palaki. So from the 12-month expected credit loss as basis, pagdating ng stage 2 at saka stage 3 na, ang magiging basis mo na will be the lifetime expected credit loss. Ganon, no? Okay, so ang diniscuss natin is for receivables pero applicable din siya doon sa ibang financial instrument. Kasi isa lang naman yung pattern eh, no? As per PFRS number 9. Di ba? Okay, so ganon ano? Sige. Yan, no? Ito yung sinasabi nating simplified model. Pare-pareho lang, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Okay? So, you performing pa. So, 12-month expected credit loss pa on gross carrying amount. Tapos, pagdating ng stage 2, ayan, lifetime expected credit loss ng basis. So, on gross carrying amount. Now, pagdating ng stage 3, credit impaired na talaga. So, lifetime expected credit loss na actual na on amortized cost. O, di ba? Ganyan. So, or lifetime expected credit loss na ang basis. Now, regarding interest revenue, ang tanong, ano magiging basis natin ng computation of interest revenue? Kaninang binigay natin na 2 million, it will still be 2 million. Yung kung ano yung loan receivable niya, gross carrying amount, yun pa rin ang basis ng interest revenue, yung pagko-compute ng interest income. No, regardless of the loss allowance. So, gross carrying amount ka pa rin. Pero pagdating ng stage 3, kasi yung financial instrument niya ay credit impaired na, ang magiging basis mo na ng interest revenue is the amortized cost. It's no longer the gross carrying amount. So, yon ang diferensya. No? Okay, so, medyo bago siya. Actually, it's not really bago. PFRS number 9 took effect 2013 pa. Okay? So, yon ano? Ngayon, regarding embedded derivatives, di ba kanina minention ko yung tungkol sa embedded derivative. What is an embedded derivative? An embedded derivative is simply a component of a hybrid instrument. Ano ibig sabihin ng hybrid? Mistiso, no? Combined. Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, may host contract tapos meron siyang derivative embedded into the host contract. So that includes a non-derivative host contract. So may non-derivative host contract, kaya gaya ng sinabi ko, convertible bonds. Alin yung non-derivative host contract? Yung bond. Tapos ano yung kanyang embedded derivative? Yung conversion privilege. 'Di ba? O yun ang ibig sabihin ng hybrid instrument. Combined sila. May non-derivative host contract, tapos may embedded derivative. Okay. Now, the non-derivative host contract may be a financial liability, no, or a financial asset. Okay? Now, yung embedded derivative naman, kunwari, no, 'di ba meron tayong mga tinatawag natin na mga ng mga derivative contracts, like for example, forward contract. Ano pa? Option contract. Ano pa? Interest rate or interest rate swap contract. Oh, 'di ba? And then meron din tayong tinatawag na futures contract. Do you still remember accounting for derivatives? Intermediate accounting, no, volume 1. Nasa volume 1 pa yung embedded yung mga derivatives. Okay? So that means to say, pag embedded derivative, may host contract, non-derivative, tapos naka-embed siya. Pero ang derivative natin, it's not only embedded, no? Merong type ng derivative that is a stand-alone derivative. Nakagaya rin naman yun, mga foreign currency forward, or something like interest rate swap contract, or option contract, or futures contract. 'Di ba? Mga derivative contracts yun, no? Okay. And that, yung mga derivatives na yan, no, this may be entered into because they may be classified or they may be used as a hedge. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng hedge? Hedge is a protection. Actually, pag sinabi mong hedge, it means to say it's a bakod, a fence. Hedge is a fence. Eh di ba kung meron kang farm, laging meron kang hedge in order to protect the animals, no? In order to bar them from going outside or from escaping the farm. O, di ba? Kaya nilalagyan mo ng protection or hedge. Now, in accounting, when we say hedge, it means to say it's a protection against an imminent financial loss. Kagaya ng fluctuation in foreign currency, no? Yung mga foreign currency, yung fluctuation of the foreign exchange rate, which may result to a financial loss. Kaya ngayon pa lang, no, kailangan mo ng let's say kailangan mo ng dollar, no, at after 6 months in order to pay your financial liability that is dollar denominated. Ngayon pa lang mag-e-enter ka na sa forward contract in order to be able to buy dollars, no? Na hindi ka maaapektuhan ng fluctuation, sudden na fluctuation of foreign currency exchange rate. O, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, in order to protect yourself against an imminent financial loss. Okay. Ngayon, meron na yun. Hedge yun. Ang tinatawag natin, hedge. There is a hedge. You have something to protect. You may protect a financial asset or a financial liability. Hedge nga. Or you may protect, let's say, a firm commitment. Okay? Or you may protect a forecasted transaction. Diba? So marami kang pinoprotect. Kaya ang tawag doon, nag-e-enter ka sa derivative transactions or derivative contract because the purpose is to hedge or to protect your financial asset or your financial liability. Diba? O ngayon, ang tanong dyan ganito, meron bang ibang klase na nag-e-enter ka doon sa mga tawag dito derivative contracts na wala ka naman pinoprotectionan? It's non-hedge or hindi naman it's not for the purpose of hedging. Yan yung sinasabi nating speculation. No? Actually, speculation is gambling. Wala naman, there is nothing to protect. Wala ka namang financial asset na pinoproteksyonan. Wala ka namang financial liability pinoproteksyonan, but you enter into a derivative transaction. Eh bakit? Kasi for speculation, gambling. Kasi anything can be, di ba sabi natin, anything can be a subject of gambling. Oh, di ba? Lahat, kahit na kunwari, aaraw ngayon. Hindi, uulan ngayon. Di nag-gamble kayo. Sige, doon ako sa aaraw, ha. Ito naman isa. Doon ako sa sa iinit. Okay. O kaya naman, sige, may boxing bout. Dito ako sa pula. Ito naman, dito ako sa puti. Right? So, ginagambol kahit ano, ginagambol. Kasi meron mga tinatawag tayo na mga observables, no, that fluctuate. It may be currency rate, or it may be, let's say, a commodity price, no, na nagfa-fluctuate. Okay? Lahat halos nagfa-fluctuate eh. 'Di ba? Kaya, it can be a subject of speculation. Okay. Ngayon, kung ang ano naman, kaya ibig sabihin, itong nakalagay sa PFRS number 9, it's all about hedge accounting. No? So accounting of embedded derivatives depends on what the host contract is. O, sa mga embedded derivative. If host, no, the financial asset within the scope of PFRS 9, then the whole hybrid contract shall be measured as one and not separated. Okay. If yung host naman is a financial liability within the scope of IFRS 9 or a contract outside the scope of IFRS 9, no, then you should separate when the conditions are met. May condition. Ito nga yung sinasabi nating process of bifurcation, wherein yung derivative aspect or yung embedded derivative is to be detached from the host contract through the process of bifurcation. But you cannot just bifurcate, no, if conditions are not met. Kaya kailangan may mga conditions that are met for you to be able to detach the embedded derivative from the host or the non-derivative host contract. Okay? Separation means that the entity accounts for embedded derivative separately in line with PFRS number 9 and the host contract in line with other appropriate standard. So if the entity is not able to do this, then the whole contract must be accounted for as a financial instrument at fair value through P&L. Okay, so yung hedge accounting natin, now, sabi nga natin, hedge accounting is designating one or more hedging instruments so that their change in fair value is an offset, no, to the change in fair value or cash flow of a hedge item. Okay? So, 'di ba sa mga naaralan niyo yung derivatives niyo, accounting for derivative, 'di ba? Yung mga ano ba yung mga nagfa-fluctuate again, ang tawag natin doon mga underlying variable or simply underlying or yung tinatawag nating observables. So may mga terms tayo, underlying variable or sometimes we call them as observables. Ito yung mga nagfa-fluctuate. Kahit nga temperature nagfa-fluctuate o ngayon, no, there is a what you call a bad kumbaga prediction regarding the heat index, no, naaabot daw sa 50 plus centigrade. Naku, grabe, sobrang init 'yon, no? So imagine if it is 50 degrees C. Okay? So my goodness, so that's too hot. Okay, yung nga there was even a time na umabot pa yata sa 55 sa province, sa isang province yata sa Dagupan. Okay? Now, talagang it's really very very hot nowadays. That's the reason why DepEd yata is pondering or is considering na balik muna sa online yung mga sa basic education. No, bakit? Napakainit ng mga what we call mga schools, no? Hindi naman air condition sa mga public school buildings no? Hindi naman air condition room, no? Kaya kawawa yung mga bata. Okay, so now so much for that. So that means to say nagfa-fluctuate, no, yung mga underlyings or yung observables, no? So hedge accounting is designating one or more hedging instruments so that their change in fair value is an offset to the change in the fair value or cash flow of a hedge item. Meron tayong tinatawag na fair value hedge or cash flow hedge. 'Di ba? Dalawa 'yon. It may be a fair value hedge or a cash flow hedge. Okay? Although we say that hedge accounting is not mandatory. Now, if the company wants to protect itself against foreign currency risk and it enters into foreign currency forward contract, even if it meets the condition for the hedge accounting, it can still measure the derivative at fair value through P&L and not apply hedge accounting. Application of hedge accounting is voluntary then. Yun ang sabi ng PFRS number 9. It is not mandatory for companies. Okay? Kung gusto lang ng company. Okay? So, Ganon, ano? Now, may mga tinatawag tayong conditions or criteria, no, that must be met for an entity to apply hedge accounting. Okay, one, there are only eligible hedging instruments and eligible hedge items in the relationship. Okay, the entity should have the hedge documentation at the inception of the hedge, in which it designates and describes its hedging, and that the hedge effectiveness criteria are met. Now, sabi natin, there are two types of hedge: cash flow hedge and fair value hedge. Okay, iba naman yung hedge of the net investment in the foreign operation. Okay, should the company have foreign operation, ayan, net investment in foreign operation can also be a subject of hedge. Okay? So the overview of the accounting for these hedges is shown, no, as accounting for hedge. It may be a fair value hedge, it may be a cash flow hedge, or it may be a hedge of a net investment in a foreign operation. Remember, accounting for foreign currency transactions and translation. Di ba meron kayo nun? Sa accounting for special, I don't know if you took that up in accounting for special transactions or under yung part 2 ng ADVAC. Okay? So, ayan, no? Ayan, sabi natin, no? There are risks involved in financial instrument, no? Okay. In fact, in the notes to financial statement, one part, or rather, no, a note to financial statement, no, is dedicated to financial risk management, no? Merong isang note, ang haba-haba nga nun, yung mga notes na yon. Now, discussing about credit risk, liquidity risk, no? Yon, no? Mga klase ng mga risk. Credit risk, liquidity risk, market risk, na ine-explain mo yan, i-explain mo yan bilang entity, reporting entity. You will dedicate a note or a particular or a specific note to financial statement, no, to discuss, no, the entity's credit risk, liquidity risk, market risk, na isa sa mga pinakamahabang notes na ina-attach mo or pine-present mo sa notes to financial statement. Okay. So under PFRS number 7. So meaning, ang susundin mo dito sa mga disclosure requirements na ito regarding this financial risk management is PFRS number 7. Because PFRS number 7 provides the disclosure requirements, no, for financial instrument, whether financial asset or financial liability or equity instrument, no? Okay. Punta tayo ng PAS number 28. So PAS 28. So for PAS 28, it is about investment, no, in associates and joint venture. Okay. So the objective of PAS number 28, no, is to prescribe the accounting for investment in associates and to set out the requirements for the application of the equity method of accounting for investment in associates and joint venture. Naalala nyo sa accounting for special transaction under joint arrangement, particularly joint venture, na ang ating recognition ng transactions, no, ng joint venture transactions, particularly yung acquisition, no, of investment, no, in joint venture. Ano ang ginagamit nating method of accounting? Equity method, di ba? Now, it is the opposite of cost method. Di ba? Di ba? Cost method versus equity method. So, ibig sabihin, if it is already investment in associate and investment in joint venture, no, ang ginagamit natin ay equity method of accounting. Okay? Now, I already mentioned earlier, no, about associate. What is an associate? An associate is an entity over which the investor has significant influence. Kaya ibig sabihin, kapag kunwari ang quantity threshold natin is at least 20% no, of the outstanding ordinary share is owned by the investor, then the investor may exercise, no, significant influence over the financial and operating decisions of the investee. Okay? Now, ano ba ibig sabihin ng significant influence? The power to participate in the financial and operating policy decisions of the investee but is not control or joint control of those policies. Now, what's a joint arrangement? An arrangement of which two or more parties have joint control. Kagaya ng sinabi nga natin, joint venture. Dalawa lang naman yan eh, joint operation or joint venture. So kapag pinasabi nating equity method na, the use of equity method, well, no, we know that the entity is a joint venture. So we invest, or it pertains to investment in joint venture. Okay. So joint control, then joint venture, joint venturer, equity method. What is equity method? A method of accounting whereby the investment is initially recognized at cost and adjusted thereafter for the post-acquisition change in the investor's share of the investee's net asset. So the investor's profit or loss includes its share of the investee's profit. Kaya kapag yung investee or yung associate nag-report ng profit, kukunin natin yung share, no, in the investor's share in the profit of the investee. Kapag naman loss, then of course, share in the reported loss of the investee. Okay? And then, of course, should there be distribution of dividends, no? Or declaration and distribution of dividends, no? Anong nangyayari? Now, the dividends, no, will reduce, no, the carrying amount of the investment account. O yun ang equity method natin na sinasabi, no? Kasi hindi nangyayari yan if you account using the cost method. Okay. Now, ano ibig sabihin nga uli ng significant influence? Where an entity holds 20% or more of the voting power. Ano ibig sabihin ng voting power? The ordinary shares, no, directly through or through subsidiaries on an investee. It will be presumed the investor has significant influence unless it can be clearly demonstrated that this is not the case. Kasi pwedeng may mga cases wherein less than 20% or lower than 20% of the voting power, kaya lang may indications that no significant influence is exercised. Okay? So if the holding is less than 20%, the entity will be presumed not to have significant influence unless such influence can be clearly demonstrated. Anong ibig sabihin ng can be clearly demonstrated? It means to say may other indications pa or indicators of significant influence. Like for example, the existence of significant influence by an entity is usually evidenced in one or more of the following ways. One, merong representation in the board of directors or equivalent governing body of the investee. So meaning to say, yung investor, merong representative sa board of directors. Siyempre, it is a presumption na merong indication of significant influence. Bakit? Kasi merong may seat na occupied by a representative of the investor. O, di ba? Ano pa? There is participation in the policy making process. Sinama si investor in the policy making process, including participation in decisions about dividends or other distribution. Ibig sabihin may say, no? Merong influence itong si investor over the investee. Otherwise, hindi ka pa sasalihin doon sa policy making process. Material transactions between the entity and the investee, interchange of managerial personnel, and provision of essential technical information. So these are indicators, no, that significant influence may be present, no, even if the ownership no, of the ownership of the voting power is less than 20%. Siyempre, yung sinasabi nating quantitative threshold will provide only a, this is only a this only provides us, no, a basis for our presumption that significant influence is present. Okay? So, yan ano? Now, ano ba yung basic principle ng equity method of accounting? Sabi natin, we use the equity method of accounting if we presume or we take or consider, no, the investor and the investee as a single economic unit. Yung kanilang economic relationship supports the use of equity method of accounting. Okay? So, kaya pag investment in associate or investment in joint venture, wala ka nang ibang iisipin kundi yung application ng equity method of accounting. Now, kapag ikaw ay merong kunwari an entity has an investment in associate or investment in joint venture, no, normally it is a non-current asset. So for purposes of presenting the statement of financial position, non-current assets sila. Okay? Yun ang classification nila. Right? Unless, as I said, it is classified as held for sale. Kaya pag-aaralan din natin yung PFRS number 5. So ibig sabihin, even in investment, pwedeng, sabi natin, investment in joint venture, investment in associate. Sabi natin, non-current asset. Kaya lang, no, merong exception to the rule, no? Or exception to the standard. So because if there should there be or should it be classified as held for sale under PFRS number 5, then it becomes current asset. Kasi yung non-current asset held for sale, whatever it is, pwedeng PPE, pwedeng intangible asset, pwedeng even long-term investment like investment in associate and investment in joint venture, pwede mong ipakita as current asset kasi held for sale na. Right? Okay, so ganon ano, kaya iisipin mo yun, marami siyang deviations, no? Kaya kailangan alam mo lahat yung principle, no? Okay, so that you will never go wrong, no, in accounting, no, for such items. Okay? Ano pa? No? Investment in ano natin, investment property natin, pinag-aralan na natin to, right? Okay. Now, eto, accounting for receivables. Bakit ko sinama ang accounting for receivables? Actually, accounting for receivables, no, is not covered in any specific PFRS except PFRS number 9. Kasi pag sinabi mong financial instrument, it of course includes receivables. Okay? What are receivables? A receivable represents a financial asset arising from a contractual right to receive cash or another financial asset from another entity. Okay. Nagbenta ka ng nagbenta ka ng paninda mo, no? On account, kaya meron kang accounts receivable. Nagbenta ka, tapos yung pinagbentahan mo, customer nag-issue ng promissory note, di notes receivable. 'Di ba? Ikasa kang bangko, no? Banking institution ka. May kliyente, nag-extend ka ng loan do sa kliyente, nag-release ka ng loan sa kliyente. What is that? That's a loan receivable. Financing company ka, nagpapaloan ka rin dun sa mga kliyente mo. That's also a loan receivable. Okay? So maraming klase ng receivable. Diba? Now, what are types of receivables? So, loans and receivables, they are non-derivative financial asset with fixed maturity. So, may maturity date ba ang receivable? Yes. Including loan assets, trade receivables, investment. Pag sinabing trade receivables, it arises from sale transaction. Kaya nga nagkaroon ka ng trade receivable. Okay? So, in the ordinary course of business. Or it may be, let's say, investment, no, in debt securities, no, or it may be deposits held by bank, no, that are not quoted in an active market other than those classified as financial asset at fair value. Okay, so there is a fixed maturity in the definition. No, it means a contractual arrangement that defines the amount and dates of payment to the holder, such as interest and principal payment. Kaya in the event na in the case of promissory note, syempre meron niyang principal amount, meron din niyang interest payment if it is an interest-bearing promissory note. Okay? So for most companies, they have trade receivables, loan assets, investment in debt instrument, whereas for banks and similar institutions, no, loans receivable and receivables, no, constitute a significant proportion of their non-trading assets. So in particular, loans and advances to customers. Okay, what are classes of receivables? You have trade receivables, you have non-trade receivables. Napakarami ng non-trade receivables. Sa trade receivables, nakakonfine sila sa accounts receivable and notes receivable trade. Pag sinabing non-trade receivables naman, these are receivables arising from sources other than trade or other than sale of goods and services in the normal course of business. Example natin, maaring nagpabalik ka doon sa mga officers and employees, ang tawag natin doon, advances to officers and employees. Receivable din yan. Sometimes nga, we call them receivables from officers and employees. Or it may be advances to a subsidiary. Okay? Nag-uutangan kaya yung mga subsidiaries na yan. Meron mga advances to advances from yung mga yan. Okay, advances to subsidiaries, dividends and interest receivable, deposits as a guarantee of performance or payment, deposits to cover potential damages or losses like claims receivables from an insurance company. Okay, claims for, yan, tama, insurance, tax refund, lawsuits, merchandise damage or lost in transit, returnable items, lahat yan, mga non-trade receivables, no? Now, presentation of receivables. Trade receivables should be presented on the face of the balance sheet as one line item and classified as current assets, but the detail of which will be disclosed in the notes. Kung maraming breakdown yung non-trade receivables mo or even trade receivables mo, okay, normally yung trade receivables, one line item yan. Yung non-trade receivables, napakarami yan. Kaya yung breakdown nun or composition, pwedeng ilagay doon sa, sa notes to financial item. No, notes to financial statement. Okay? Now, recognition and measurement of receivables. Initial recognition measured at fair value. Okay? The fair value is based on the total expected future cash inflows that an enterprise will realize. Mali pa. Will be realized. Inflow that an enterprise will realize. Walang di yan. Will eh. Okay. Yan. For example, no, for short-term receivables with no stated interest, the transaction price is the original invoice amount, kung ano yung nakalagay dun sa bill or dun sa invoice. No, accounts receivable is valued at the exchange price agreed on by the buyer and the seller. Kung ano yung nakalagay doon sa sales invoice, yun na ang accounts receivable mo. No, the exchange price agreed on by the buyer and the seller. What about notes receivable? It should be stated at present value. It is at face amount if the notes receivable who is has a term of less than a year or just a year. Okay? Lagi namang at present value yan. Ngayon, kapag ang notes receivable is something that is long-term, ayan, gagamit ka ng present value of a note, gagamit ka ng present value factor in order to determine, no, the present value of the notes receivable. Yung kukunin mo yung discounted value niya. No? Okay, the present value of a note may be its face value for notes that are short-term and interest-bearing long-term notes, or discounted value kapag gagamitin mo lang yung discounted value na yan, magko-compute ka kapag non-interest-bearing note. Diba? Naaalala mo pag non-interest bearing note, ang ginagawa natin, kukunin natin discounted value or present value ng note. Gagamit tayo ng present value factor. Okay? So, yun ang ibig sabihin natin. Pero kapag, kunwari, sinabi nating present value, well, the present value of the note may be its face value for notes that are short term, no? And interest-bearing long-term notes, no? Okay, for non-interest-bearing note, doon tayo nagko-compute ng discounted value. Naalala nyo? Okay, so I hope so. Okay. So, subsequent to initial recognition, so loans and receivables are measured at amortized cost. The amortized cost of a financial asset is the amount at which the financial asset is measured at initial recognition minus principal repayment plus or minus principal amortization using the effective interest method. Yun ang amortized cost. Diba? Okay. And that, eto nga, pinag-aralan na natin yung impairment of receivables, no? Yung mga stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Ayan. With, together with an example, an illustrative problem. Okay. Now, you can also make or you can also generate immediate cash through receivable financing. Pwede mo bang ibenta yung mga receivables mo? Yes, definitely. Okay, so what are the types of receivable financing? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng receivable financing? Making or generating immediate cash out of receivables. No, even without o kumbaga waiting for the maturity date. So, ibig sabihin, you can use accounts receivable by pledging it or by having it as a collateral, no, to secure, no, a loan. Okay, to secure. Collateral to secure. Ako, to secure a loan. Ayan. Okay. Gagamitin collateral para makautang sa bangko. Okay? Ano pa? Assignment of accounts receivable, which is a conditional sale of accounts receivable. Factoring of accounts receivable. Okay. Absolute sale of accounts receivable to a factor. So who is a factor? A factor is the purchaser of accounts receivable. And that factoring is an absolute sale. If assignment of accounts receivable is conditional sale, it may be on notification basis or non-notification basis. Kaya di ba pag assignment of accounts receivable, naalala nyo yung asinor and assignee. Okay? So the parties involved in or the parties, the contracting parties, no, in assignment of accounts receivable are the assignee, the asinor, and the assignee. Sa factoring naman, of course, the entity selling the accounts receivable to a factor. Kaya yung entity mo at saka yung factor. No? Sino si factor? Si factor yung buyer ng accounts receivable. It's an absolute sale. Kaya normally sa factoring of accounts receivable, there is such thing as a factor's holdback. No? Ibig sabihin, hindi lahat binabayaran. Merong tinitira para in the event of a default of a customer, doon kukunin. No? So, factoring of accounts receivable. Now, what about discounting of notes receivable? You can sell a promissory note, no, to a bank or to a financing company. Yun yung sinasabing, ipa-discount mo na lang yung note. O, yan. So, generating cash out of the promissory note prior to its maturity. No? The discounting may be recorded as a borrowing or as a sale. Right? Yun ang discounting of notes receivable kasi pwedeng sa discounting of notes receivable with condition or without condition. Conditional or not conditional. Absolute or it may be conditional. Okay? Discounting of notes receivable. Diba? Okay, so let's answer. Naku, eto na. Teka, mahaba-haba ito. Anyway, sige, we will just continue next meeting. No, I want you to answer the questions, no, in PFRS number 9 or itong anong to, lecture note na to kasi there are too many. Ang dami nila. Ang dami-dami niyan. So you try, just be patient in answering the multiple choice and all other types of questions right there in that lecture note. Okay? So because it's already 9 p.m., no? But wait for a while before we go, no? So let me first get a snapshot of our um, class today or tonight. Okay, wait for a while. Today, the day today is 24. Ano? All right. Okay, so since it's already 9 p.m., so good night and see you next week. Okay? Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.